Michael Faraday is often celebrated as the soft-spoken wizard of the electrical world, a gentle, curious dreamer whose imagination shimmered brighter than sparks leaping from a winter sweater, and whose playful fascination with the invisible forces of nature eventually transformed the world in ways even he could never have imagined. He was born in 1791 in a tiny London house that leaned slightly to one side, as if the building itself were listening closely to every secret whispered on the street, while chilly gusts snuck through cracked windows and candles flickered with a nervous shiver, making evenings feel like cozy storytelling time in a lantern-lit cave. Faraday grew up in a poor but warm-hearted family, the kind that could fix anything with determination and a good mood even if they had no money for fancy books or elegant instruments, and little Michael quickly learned to treasure curiosity as his most priceless possession. As a boy, he picked up bits of scrap metal, broken glass, old keys, and twisty wires from the street, turning them into imaginary machines powered by his boundless imagination, seeing gadgets where others saw garbage, and creating secret devices that lived only in his mind's glowing workshop. He built tiny contraptions out of string and twine, watched sunlight bend through pieces of glass like magic, and wondered why magnets seemed to have invisible hands that grabbed nails, spoons, and pins as if teasing him to figure out their hidden tricks. He worked as an apprentice in a bookbinding shop, spending long days sewing pages, gluing covers, and pressing heavy books while the warm, dusty smell of paper drifted around him like a cloud made of ideas, each breath tickling his brain with curiosity. Whenever the shop grew quiet, he opened books he wasn't supposed to read, eyes shining as he devoured pages about electricity buzzing through wires, chemical reactions that fizzed like tiny volcanoes, and magnets that acted like mysterious guardians of hidden cosmic rules. He read about great scientists performing extraordinary experiments, filling rooms with clouds of gas, sparks of light, strange smells, and surprising pops that echoed like tiny fireworks. And Faraday's heart thumped wildly as he imagined himself standing among them, wearing a sooty apron and grinning from ear to ear. He practiced small experiments in the back of the shop, using needles, coins, and random bits of wire, laughing whenever a spark jumped or a magnet twitched, and whispering excitedly to himself like a wizard practicing new spells. Every discovery, no matter how small, felt like the universe winking at him. Faraday dreamed of becoming a scientist with the kind of determination that could push a mountain, even though most people expected him to remain a bookbinder forever, reminding him that poor boys had no place in grand laboratories filled with brass instruments and swirling vapors. But Faraday kept going, chasing knowledge as if he were sprinting after a runaway kite, believing deep in his heart that curiosity was stronger than circumstances and that passion could crack open doors that were bolted shut. One day he received tickets to scientific lectures by Humphrey Davy, one of the most famous chemists of the age, and Faraday practically skipped to the hall carrying a notebook like a treasure chest waiting to be filled with wonders. He sat in the back row, eyes sparkling like polished marbles as Davy performed experiments that lit up the room with glowing colors, swirling vapors, sizzling sparks, and delighted whispers from the audience, each moment making Faraday feel if he had stepped into a live magic show where the magician explained every trick. He took notes with intense concentration, scribbling diagrams, arrows, squiggles, and enthusiastic comments until his notebook looked like a map to a secret island made of explosions, magnets, and chemical reactions. Eventually, Faraday gathered all his notes, bound them into a carefully stitched book beautifully crafted with the hands of a true bookbinder and the heart of a determined dreamer, and sent it to Humphrey Davy as proof of his burning passion. Davy was impressed, and despite being one of the busiest scientists in London, he invited Faraday to become his assistant, giving the young dreamer a key to the world of science he had longed for since the moment he first smelled a freshly opened book. Faraday's new role wasn't glamorous at first. He cleaned equipment, polished metal tubes, organized mysterious bottles filled with liquids that looked like dragon tears, and even cleaned up tiny explosions that sputtered across the lab like mischievous sparks. But with every task, he absorbed knowledge like a sponge dropped into a storm, watching closely, thinking deeply, and asking questions with the gentle persistence of someone who believed that every mystery deserved attention. He performed chemical experiments that made colorful flames leap like athletic dancers, listened to the crackle of electricity as if it were whispering secret advice, and studied magnets as though they were living creatures with moods and personalities. Soon, Faraday began conducting his own experiments, setting up wires, magnets, coils, and metal plates until his workbench looked like a playground built by invisible gremlins who loved spirals and circles. He wondered if electricity could move endlessly without stopping, like a cosmic river looping forever, so he built devices that twisted, spun, hummed, and occasionally exploded in small bursts that startled nearby assistants. Then, one ordinary-looking day, something extraordinary happened. An electric current began spinning around a magnet in a perfect, graceful loop, like a tiny planet orbiting a miniature sun. Faraday had just invented the world's first electric motor, although at the time it looked more like a wiggly wire doing a joyful dance. He shouted with delight, startling a few pigeons outside the window, and he wasn't finished. Faraday experimented with coils of copper wire and spinning magnets, trying combinations that seemed ridiculous to everyone except him, until he finally discovered electromagnetic induction, the principle behind generators, the machines that breathe life into modern civilization. With this discovery, Faraday had found a way to create electricity from motion, like squeezing lightning out of spinning metal, turning invisible forces into something humans could control, store, and use to power cities, machines, and inventions that didn't even exist yet. He imagined electricity not as a cold, scientific concept, but as a lively, mischievous friend who zipped around with unstoppable energy, eager to help anyone clever enough to ask. Faraday also invented the Faraday cage, a special structure that protects anything inside it from electrical shocks, and he proved its power by stepping into one while lightning crackled all around him, a magnificent display of roaring energy. He stood calmly inside, smiling like a man relaxing in a rocking chair, waving merrily at terrified assistants who thought he might get zapped into next week. Despite his fame, Faraday remained humble, preferring to teach children and curious visitors, showing them experiments bursting with colors, sparks, swirls, and magical transformations that made science feel like a living storybook of wonders. He spoke gently, with warmth and excitement, making complex ideas feel like friendly creatures eager to be understood, and his lectures became legendary for their charm, humor, and theatrical displays that made kids cheer and gasp. Even as he grew older and his health faded, Faraday would stand by the window during thunderstorms, watching lightning streak across the sky with a look of deep affection, as if greeting old companions who had inspired his life's greatest discoveries. He understood the invisible threads that connected electricity, magnetism, motion, and energy, threads that hummed with the music of the universe, and he followed them with the curiosity of a lifelong explorer. Today, every generator, every transformer, every electric motor, every city lit up at night, every train powered by electric rails, every machine humming in a factory, every buzzing refrigerator, and every phone charging quietly on a table carries Faraday's fingerprint. His discoveries reshaped the world not through equations or complicated papers, but through imagination, persistence, and the simple belief that curiosity could unlock the secrets of the universe. Michael Faraday remains a shining reminder that true genius can grow in the humblest places. From a boy with a love for books, he couldn't afford to a man who gave humanity the tools to harness the power of lightning itself. And every time you flip a switch, plug in a charger, or watch a spark jump in winter air, remember the gentle scientist who once looked at a tiny spark and thought, "There you are now, show me what you can do," and then spent his whole life listening to what electricity whispered back.